Hello and welcome to this episode of Sticky Note Marketing. I am so excited this week. We have another guest expert to bring their knowledge, their expertise, their inspiration and experience to us today. So today I'm welcoming Nancy Giere. Thank you, Nancy, for being here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So if you are not a follower of Nancy already, which you should be, and the links will be with this episode, but Nancy is a course creation expert. And I know there are a lot of you who've been sending me questions about how do I start a course? How do I get this launched? That's what we're going to be digging into today. And Nancy works with businesses of all different sizes, from solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies, and she helps them turn their expertise into high profit courses. So she creates engaging, fun, and interactive programs that really get results. So if that sounds good to you, stay tuned to get those sticky notes ready and active to take notes. So thank you and welcome, Nancy.
Thank you.
So I know I got a little bit of a bio and a little bit of background on you, but I always invite folks, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about how did you get from there to here, a little bit more about your background that you think that the audience should know.
Well, like a lot of people, I sort of fell into working in training. My boss many years ago said, "Hey, we need to create a course to train the people that work on the floor in the bank to teach insurance products. And you're a good talker. How about you to put that together?" I said, "Sure." I had no idea what I was doing. Now, this is back in the day when everything was in person. That's how long ago this was. And I put it together, and I think it was okay. But I got a lot of calls afterwards, which led me to believe that there was some things that might have been missing from what I did. Well, then fast forward a couple of jobs, and I went to work for a company where our mission was to create courses that delivered on 3.5-inch discs because that was self-instruction at that time. It had gone from paper to plastic.
Oh, sure.
And because it was, we were creating all of these courses for hire and they had to be done quickly, there was a whole methodology that we followed called instructional design. I knew nothing about it until I took that position. Well, I was very fortunate. It's one of those moments in a career that you don't necessarily appreciate it when it's happening, but you look back on it and you go, wow, that was a game changer. So while I was there, I'm doing the work, I'm learning how to create effective training. I had a quality assurance manager and a direct manager that reviewed everything that I did and gave me feedback in terms of, okay, how do we make it better? And they brought in Governor State University to teach us instructional design at the graduate level on our lunch hour. So it was like this perfect storm of doing the work, learning about the work, and getting regular feedback, which I think made a huge difference in my career. And it also leaned into my nature to be service-minded throughout my career. So I've worked with people, whether on the inside in a corporation or as a consultant. It's like, how do we make it better? How can I help you to do a better job in building out your courses? And it's just been very fulfilling to be able to pay it forward.
That's fantastic. I love how those things kind of sometimes just happen in the perfect constellation of events to help bring us to where we are now. So
yeah,
definitely. And you've got other new news. So one of the things I definitely want to make sure we talk about today is your new book. So
yes,
you guys haven't heard, there's an amazing new book out there called Bundle Your Brilliance. And it's all about how to turn your expertise into profitable online courses. So
that's
what
the
is
title.
your favorite thing about bringing this book to life, Nancy?
Well, my favorite thing about this is, I distilled all my years, got 30 years of experience. And I looked at it and said, how can I make this really practical how-to take people from idea to implementation? So there's not a lot of theory. It's really just this is how we do it, right? and I've gotten great feedback. I'm very thrilled I hit the international bestseller status in distance and online learning right out of the gate. Yay.
Nice.
And I've got several 5-star reviews, and people that I work with, they're reading it cover to cover. They're reading it multiple times, and it helps them because it carries forward my approach. So we have a meeting, we talk about, here's your next step. Then they can read about it in the book, and that can kind of help them keep going. And I loaded it up with a lot of checklists and tools and templates that people can use. So it's really, my mission was to create something practical, because to me, it was heartbreaking the amount of people that were cranking out online courses with no design, no thought. They were really recorded webinars disguised as online courses. And I think that people weren't showcasing their brilliance. Like, they didn't stop and think, this is part of my brand. This is part of who I am. So if I don't deliver something that works, there's a potential negative impact. I mean, I wonder how it would be great to have a show of hands, but how many people out there watching this or listening to this have signed up for a course and just was like, oh my God, this is so boring. I can't, I can't stand it. And then they're out.
Right. And then they don't get the knowledge they needed. They don't get the change they needed. You're not delivering the value you had hoped to, right? Yeah. Exactly. No, I love that. So practical, actionable. So thinking about, I know you work with teams, with individuals. I know you do a lot of speaking and influence crowds. When you're thinking about some of those big challenges that people are coming to you at, those frequently heard pain points from folks, what are the most common ones that you're working on right now, that you're tackling with your clients and with your audiences?
One of the biggest challenges that people have is they go, man, I've got all this content. What do I do? How do I organize it? How do I put it all together to have it make sense? What should I include? What don't I include? What if I leave something out? That's it's just really, they get overwhelmed by all this disparate information, and then and looking at a way to pull it all together. That's the first one. And then the second one is, oftentimes people don't start with the outcome in mind. The old, Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. They don't look at, what's the place that I want to get people to? Where are they now? And, what do I have to do to close that gap? And I think and not really being intentional about it and really purposeful. I think, I get it. During the pandemic, people panicked and they had to get stuff out quickly. But now it's time to, take a step back and go, okay, what can you do to level up the learning experiences that you're providing, so that people will really be able to not only enjoy consuming them and, get the benefit from it. It's really comes down to not thinking about this from a design perspective. Like, you're not going to build a house without a drawing and a plan.
No, definitely. You're singing to the choir, but I love the idea of not developing content for content's sake, right? It's this whole idea of, well, we can talk about this, and we have talked about this, and we have all this information out there, but never stopping to ask the question, well, is this the right information that's going to get our audience to move through that journey with us and build that trust that we need to actually create a relationship? So I think that that's really important. And I know that one of the things that you share as a tip is that this content needs to do a couple key things, right? It needs to help us understand something in a clear way. It needs to help us move through things. So when you're thinking about talking to, let's think about someone who has all of this content, right? So not necessarily the person who's just starting to develop content maybe, but someone who is dealing with kind of deciding, okay, what of this can I use again, or should I bring back, or do I need to go an entirely different way? What would you say they should start to ask first?
I think one of the first questions is, who do you serve? And what's the problem that you're trying to solve? To really focus on your target audience, right? I guess not unlike when you're really developing any type of a product or service for sale. Who's it for? What's the problem that it's going to solve, or how is it going to improve somebody's existence? Got it. And then the second question is, when they complete the program, what do you want them to be able to do? What do you want them to know? And how do you want them to feel? And that then sets up kind of you've got then a framework to operate in, because you're real clear on this is what the end game is going to be. So everything that as you're working through your content, then you can sort it easily and go, does this fit with the outcome for this course? Yes or no? And if it fits, great. If it doesn't fit, put it off to the side for another day. And then to think about it from a what's the need to know information and what's nice to know. And the main road through your course should be your need to know information. And then you can have other content that they can look at that's nice to know. So I'm looking at, finally the person that makes online courses or other people is finally making an online course. And I thought about, there's some interesting tools that people might want to use. I'm not going to put those in the main path. Those are going to be bonus content. So if somebody wants to learn about how to use Mentimeter, for example, for doing their surveys, instead of doing the survey that's available in Zoom, that to me, that's like they can go and they can look that up and go, oh, that sounds interesting. I think it's more important to talk about how and when do you use a survey or an assessment, and then the specific tools that can be in another kind of supporting piece or bonus content. I just feel like it's you can get so caught up in it that you end up putting too much. A friend of mine uses the term too muchness.
Yes, I like that. But it's true, because then you start getting distracted. Then you're like, okay, let me pause the course, or let me pause my learning, and I'll go look up the website, or I'll check out the technology, or I'll worry about the tool set, instead of really actually consuming the lesson and getting
instead of thinking about, well, if you're going to do a survey, what's the purpose of it? What type of questions do you want to ask? I mean, to really kind of get nail down, well, what is the content going to be in the survey? And then go, okay, given my capabilities, how do I want to do it?
That's such a good point. Hopefully you guys are all taking down these notes on your sticky notes. If you're not, take them out now. Well, so you mentioned, obviously, yes, exactly. Sticky notes, love it. So you mentioned surveys, for example, including surveys in your courses or in instructional design. So what type of content are you seeing working really well right now for online courses? What kind of content should people really ensure or think about including in their courses?
Well, I think I'm gonna flip it and go from what doesn't work, because you can deliver just about any type of content, but there are certain tasks that people need to actually do and get feedback on. And that mostly, so one of the examples that comes out of work that I did with a utility company was a whole curriculum about welding. You can teach all the math skills that they need to know online. And frankly, I was surprised at the amount of math that these guys had to know. I was like, wow, we're going up to trigonometry here. But so that can all be done in an online format. They can practice, you can give them tests, they can do it all there. But when they get to the point where they have to cut a pipe or weld a pipe, they can watch videos, they can kind of get an idea of how it works. But eventually they have to pick up the tools and do the work. And somebody needs to give them feedback on, is it correct? Is there a way that they be more efficient? The ergonomics of it. Are they standing in a way that's, or you think about like if somebody's learning to play golf, you can play golf in a video game, but it's different when you're on the course or,
little bit.
Miniature golf, they got the windmills and you got all these other.
That's way more my speed, but yeah.
It's my favorite. But anything that's maybe more physical, or if people are learning on let's say communication, if I want to learn to be a better speaker, there's certain things that I can do that I can practice on my own, learn not to say but there's a point when you need to deliver the speech and somebody needs to tell you what's working, what's not working, how to improve your delivery. You can't just do that independently. You have to get feedback if you want to excel. And that's where you want to look at it is there a need for me to provide direct feedback on the performance for them to be able to be successful? Or is it something that's just really building knowledge, like learning a math skill, learning how to use Microsoft Excel, learning how to do video editing, things like that? You can probably get it from watching and doing it online and then and practicing. But even there, I'm going to sort of go back maybe on video editing. It's good to have somebody give you feedback somewhere along the way. So that's really, when do you really think, when is it going to make a difference that you're directly involved? And again, the big word of the day seems to be feedback.
No, but it's true. Like you're saying, there's only so much that we can do in a vacuum, right? Well, it looked like this on the instructional video. It looks like this when I did it. What did I do wrong, right? I followed all the steps, or I did exactly what they said, but it still doesn't quite look the same. Kind of like me when I try to do those things on Pinterest that look so pretty, and then it's the Pinterest fail in my kitchen, right?
I get to Canva and I go, what the heck?
Exactly.
And I remember growing up, my mother saying, if you can read, you can cook. And the whole idea, because there's a recipe to follow. And if you put everything together exactly as it says in the recipe, it's probably going to be successful.
The key is, though, did I follow the recipe? That's my problem.
Yeah,
so,
I skip. I
like to skip around, like to improvise a little bit. Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm going to add something else to this.
This looks like it's missing something. Well, that's interesting. So someone might be going through your course. If they're doing it out of order, does that come up? Are there ways to kind of bring people back, or are there kind of guardrails that you need to think about when you're creating a course to keep people on track?
Well, many of the platforms that courses reside on, they allow you to set it up so that people can't continue to the next lesson unless they take the first lesson. So that's kind of your choice. Does it matter? Is there a particular sequence that people need to follow, or, can they come in and pick up any component along the way?
Got it. Okay. So that is something that you might want to ask in that design process.
Yes.
Thinking about it.
Yes.
Is it really going to mess them up if they start to skip ahead, or if they take this out of order, or can I guide them through it in a more logical, beneficial process?
Does the knowledge need to build on itself?
Got it. Well, what about when people get stuck? So are there good ways or best practices for encouraging people to get through the course, right? To make it more interactive or more engaging?
So you're talking about the learner getting stuck, not the creator.
Well, actually both. I know that there's a lot of folks that are creating courses and get stalled halfway through too.
Exactly. So if you look at it from the learner perspective, I like to tell the story about when I was flying and safety briefing comes on. Now, if the flight attendant is standing near me, I'll watch them. But if they're not, I don't pay attention. But when the video comes up, I watch the video. And I think we're very conditioned to screens. And I was watching this one safety video, and I started counting the number of times that the scene changed. And I stopped counting at 60. And this is like a 3-minute video. So one of the simplest ways to create engagement is to keep changing the scene. And if you keep changing the scene, like going from being on camera to showing a presentation to doing a screen share, that can make all the difference in the world, because every time it shifts, you've got my attention. And I believe because we've grown up in the, very few people that are around today started out in the radio days. There's a few,
sure,
but we're used to looking at something on a screen where there's a lot of movement. And then when we get into our courses, particularly when they're like the recorded webinars disguised as an online course, they're so flat and boring because it's a lot of talking head.
Got it.
And I get it. People needed to start and go out into with minimum viable product, but then you need to amp it up.
Sure.
So that's one way of doing it. And then the other part is get people into doing as quickly as you can. Give them an exercise early on, so they have to stop and they have to think and they have to take some kind of action, because that will keep them engaged throughout the process, and look at, how can you mix things up so that, like, again, keep it short, keep it to the point, and have people keep moving and have them feel like they're gaining some success. They're picking up skills throughout the cycle. That's just so important.
Well, because it keeps that motivation up. It's like, oh, look at me. I'm
Exactly.
making progress.
Well, and I think one of the challenges that we have, and I think a key distinction between what you can do in the corporate market and what's happening in the entrepreneurial market is, so in the corporate market, there's two distinct toolkits or tool sets.
Mhm.
There's the learning management system, which is where the courses reside for people to consume them, whether they're employees or customers. And then there are authoring tools that people use to build courses. And in these authoring tools, you can set things up so people are interacting on the screen. It's not just press next to continue, but it's maybe there's a flip card. So there's a term on the front of the card, you turn it over and the definition is on the back. Or there's an accordion where there's the main list and then you click on each item and it expands. You can embed video. You can there's a lot of opportunities to create interaction there that you can't do on the platforms that are more for the entrepreneurial market. There, and the other part of it, it's like everything is on a screen and you're just scrolling through, and then there's a menu off to the side, but it's all right there in front of you all the time. Where the courses that exist on the platforms that are used by the entrepreneurial market, you have a menu, you click on it, you open it up, you play a video, you click on the next thing, you get a worksheet. It's like video worksheet, video worksheet, video worksheet. And I think that my goal and what I'm kind of working on behind the scenes, so stay tuned, is how can I take that level of interaction that's in the tools that corporations can use and bring it to the entrepreneurial market. And I'm looking at different ways to do that now. I'm in the fact finding phase to figure out, okay, how do we make this work? Because I think there's another challenge on the entrepreneur side is if they want to sell a course into the corporate market, they're probably not going to want to have them go to their platform and take it, but they're going to want to have that course. They want to license it and put it on their company intranet if it's for employees, or internet if it's for customers. So they want to have it on their platform,
right?
So you need to be able to. So that's easy. You can build an authoring tool and you can put it there. But everybody's been kind of sent down this road of video worksheet, video worksheet, video worksheet, and I think it's kind of flat and kind of boring.
Well, especially if like you were saying, some of those key things are switching the frame, giving those early achievements, those big wins, right? And then trying different formats, right? So it's not always filling in a checklist or filling out a form or completing a template.
Yeah.
Different exercises will kind of trigger their brain in different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people will often, they'll want to add it. I'll add in a quiz. And there's an art and science to writing a good quiz. And oftentimes people will just do something like for the sake of, and you're just wasting my time. But you want to have it be where people have to think about to get the right answer. And I see that all the time where the questions are just badly written. And again, just from my time and the work that I've done with corporations, there's a whole lot of rigor that goes into writing a good test, particularly if there are topics that tie into things like safety or the diversity and inclusion, phishing, things, the cybersecurity. Those tests, they need to be, because they have to be able to prove we train people to do this. They completed it successfully. So if there's a problem, they can say, hey, here's what we did. We trained everybody. But anyway, so it's interesting how I think there's a way that these two markets kind of need to come together. And tools are improving all the time. So probably my idea is probably in play in other places too.
No, but it's a great filter for anyone listening to this that's trying to decide, well, what platform should I use, or what kind of questions do I need to ask when I'm deciding on my tool set, or where where
Right.
is my course going to live? Does it have that functionality to not just have video worksheet, right? So
Yeah,
it actually
exactly.
mixes up the experience. I like that.
And the authoring tools, there's two that are, the one of the most popular ones is made by a company called Articulate, and they have a browser-based application called Rise, which is really nice plug and play components, not that difficult to build in. But the license is an investment, so you have to think about it, from that angle. Do I want to bear the cost of this license?
No, definitely. Well, thinking about the creator, I know you mentioned, okay, where are they getting stuck? Is it the learner? Is it the creator? For those creators or aspiring course creators who might be listening to this, what would you say to someone who maybe has tried and gotten stuck, or has procrastinated in actually taking the next step with developing their course?
Right. Well, the first big challenge that people have is time. Because it's what's the best use of my time? And let's face it, creating a course is a project. So where does this project, how important is this project in the total scheme of everything people have to do? They're not like me, where all they do is create courses. So it's a different approach, because that's just what I do. But for somebody else, they're looking at, well, how do I do this? And the 100 other things I have to do to keep my business going. The other place that people always seem to get stuck is when it's time to record video. People, they don't want to do it. They're nervous about doing it. It's like, is my hair okay? Do I sound okay? And oh my God, I can't stand looking at myself, because it kind of freaks people out, and they become more judgmental of themselves, which is too bad. What I'm finding is when they're just recording on their own, I got to do it over. That wasn't good. That wasn't right. So I've been recommending people, get some people so you can be live and be talking to people when you're doing your recording, because that will naturally bring up your energy level. Sometimes when people record by themselves, it gets flatter, it gets quieter, and they don't bring the energy to it that they need to.
Those are two. Good idea. I like that. Well, it's true.
And I think
sometimes just watching yourself talk, there's not a lot of motivation there.
I know, and it's funny because we talk about Zoom fatigue, because we're looking at ourselves all day long. This is not like if you and I were doing this and we were sitting in a, having a drink or in a meeting room somewhere, I'd be looking at you, you'd be looking at me. I wouldn't know if my hair's out of place. I wouldn't care, because we'd just be having a conversation. But it's stressful to see ourselves all day long. And I think, if we back it up a little bit, the other kind of point where people get stuck is when they're looking at all that content that they have and they go, man, how am I going to put this all together? And then, and the stuckness comes from not thinking about what's that end goal going to be? Where do you want to take people to? So you've got a good filter to go, keeping this in, kicking this out, keeping this in, kicking this out.
Well, I love that filter, right? Because if we don't know where you want to, where is this course leading in your business? How does this fit into everything else you're offering? It becomes impossible to know what to include. So I can totally see that as a great filter to use. That makes a lot of sense.
Or there's a fear, I gotta put everything that I ever learned in, when in fact, no.
Yeah, exactly. Too much might be overwhelming, and then they'll be paralyzed and actually not complete what you want them to complete. So
it's more of a problem of people eliminating than not having enough to say.
I love that.
That seems to be
a bigger challenge. Reminder. Well, I wanted to bring it back to your book. So for those that are listening, if they are thinking, or if they are the kind of person who is who is the prime person who should immediately go out and buy your book, read it, if not multiple times?
Well, prime audience is authors, speakers, and coaches and small business consultants. That's a main audience. I would also say, if people are working in a business setting, whatever their job might be, if they're new to course creation, I think this book works really well, because it'll get them started. It'll give them a process, give them all the tools that they need to get from end to end. And then if they choose to make a career, out of training, then, they can dig deeper. But this to me is just, I'm very proud of the fact that it is so practical.
Fantastic.
There's no fluff.
So no fluff, exactly what
No
you need
fluff.
to know, get it done, get it out there and change people's lives.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
Well, for all of you guys listening, we'll definitely include the link to connect you with that book right away and to also connect with Nancy if you'd like to dig in more with her on anything that she shared today. I know we were able to just scratch the surface on your genius and experience today, Nancy, but thank you for sharing with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any parting thoughts for those aspiring course creators out there?
I just be intentional about what you do. Be real clear on who you serve and the problem you're trying to solve and what makes you unique in solving that problem.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Nancy. I really appreciate you spending time with us here on Sticky Note Marketing. And for those of you, stay tuned. We're going to bring a few more experts in as part of this expert guest series, and check out the show notes or the notes coming along with this episode to find out where to connect with Nancy, learn more from her, and definitely get your hands on her book, Bundle Your Brilliance. So thank you, Nancy, and we'll be talking soon.
All righty. Thank you.